How do we make sure our promises become practices that change the world? Thank you for that powerful visual statement of what we're trying to achieve here today. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you and welcome to the official launch of the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact at the Generation Equality Forum. We warmly thank the governments of France, Mexico, and UN Women for co-hosting the Generation Equality Forum and doing this together with women, civil society organizations, and youth networks. It is now 26 years after the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and more than 20 years after the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. We pledged then to put women and girls at the heart of peace and security and humanitarian action. Yet, as we saw in the video just now, our progress is sorely lacking. The political will and investment to achieve gender equality has been absent. Generational inclusivity is often an afterthought. While we have spoken the language of intersectionality, the full recognition of the lived experiences of women from all walks of life and diverse backgrounds, including the most vulnerable, has not been part of the heart of our work. And today, we change that. Today, we're saying gender equality is urgent. It is urgent because we know peace agreements are doomed to fail when they ignore half of society. Humanitarian action will be ineffective when it does not take the specific needs of women and girls into account. Today, at the Generation Equality Forum, we have been handed a tremendous opportunity for collective action. More than 50 governments, UN entities, regional organizations, women's and youth networks, academic institutions, and private sector groups have spent months crafting compact framework, which focuses on accountability for existing on women, peace and security, and gender equality in humanitarian action. It is a framework that is intended to drive 5 years of real, game-changing, transformative action on gender equality in the peace and security and humanitarian action space. At its core, the Compact is an intergenerational movement built on feminist principles of transformation and inclusion and rooted in international human rights and humanitarian law. Now, we know that we cannot succeed without the united efforts of all members of society. And today we're thrilled to have represented here voices from all ages, from inspirational young leaders to experts who have shaped and developed this field for decades. Over the next 2 hours, we will hear from peace builders, human rights advocates, change makers, and world leaders. Each of our speakers here today has played a vital role in ensuring that women and girls will have leadership and agency, economic security, human rights protection, access to financing, and participation in peace processes. And now, I turn to Phumzile Mlambo Nguka, Executive Director of UN Women, and Pramila Patton, Under-Secretary General and UN Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence in Conflict, who will offer welcome remarks live from Paris. Over to you, Madam Phumzile.
Thank you so much, Yemisi, and greetings to everybody who has joined us for this session. I am here with Pramila in Paris, who is the SG on sexual violence in conflict, and both of us are welcoming the remarks that you've just made. We are here today because we believe that we have not finished the job we started. In fact, it has become even more complicated. The issue of women who are affected by conflict is a challenge that requires all of us to work harder, faster, to accelerate the pace of change. Just like in generation equality, we are also trying to accelerate the pace of change in the implementation of the Beijing Platform for Action. We are accelerating change in making sure that we accelerate the implementation of 1325. We are also making sure that young people are part of this process. So I'm pleased that here in Paris, we have young people playing a significant role in the work that we are doing here in Paris. We are seeing women still sitting in the corridors where peace is being negotiated by men, inside where men are sitting at peace tables. We are still in places where women's voices are not being listened to. And women who are victims of sexual violence in conflict are not getting the help that they need. So today we have a lineup of speakers who want to talk about this and what we need to do at this time. And with COVID-19, the situation has become even more complex for most women all around the world. So today, myself and Camilla will lend our support to this process. Camilla, what do you say?
Well, thank you, Yemisi, for inviting the Executive Director of UN Women. Thank you, Phumzile, for having me. I must say it is very exciting to be here 26 years after Beijing, as you rightly pointed out, MEC, and 21 years since the adoption of Resolution 1325, which was a landmark resolution on women, peace and security. And you are so right, Punzile, that we should not have had to wait for so long. Gender inequality and discrimination are the root causes of conflict-related sexual violence, and its invisible driver. Conflict-related sexual violence is the crime, the weapon of war that is both powered by and perpetuates gender inequality. And you are so right that this crime in 2021 should have been consigned to a closed chapter of history. Just for the year 2020, in spite of COVID, when we expected having a blackout on the number of reported cases due to the COVID pandemic, we unfortunately found a significant number of cases of sexual violence reported in 18, 19 countries that my mandate covers, and that 96% of the victims are women and girls who are specifically targeted. And we know also that the chronic underreporting of wartime sexual violence due to reprisal, stigma, amongst other obstacles, lack of services, has been compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic, COVID-related containment measures. So I think as we move forward, my priority is to ensure that we do not put on pause the needs of survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. I think even as we respond to the pandemic, it is important that we ensure that we continue to support the provision of comprehensive services to every victim, that every case is investigated, and that we we have a survivor-centered, rights-based approach to sexual violence, and that we continue to tackle the root cause of sexual and gender-based violence. And let me ask you a question, Punzile. Given all these common challenges that MEC has outlined, that you have outlined, that women and girls in all their diversity face around the world, what most impacted your decision to launch this Generation Equality campaign? And what do you consider to be the value of having a compact on women, peace and security and humanitarian action at this time? Because it's my great pleasure to join you for the launch of this compact. But what do you consider to be its concrete value?
Yeah. Thank you, Pramila, for that question. Firstly, let me say that this is not about making new commitments. This is in the case of this compact, but it is about implementing the many decisions that we have taken since Beijing. But it is about accelerating the implementation of all those commitments that we made. It is also about bringing young people at the center of the implementation of all these commitments that have been made, and making sure that the implementation as well as the engagement of the stakeholders in the ecosystem of women, peace and security and humanitarian action has the hand of young people in them. We want to make sure that we also generate resources that are needed for this acceleration, because too many of the critical action have remained unimplemented because there has not been resources. We have said too much of the resources are going to buying of arms as against investment in peace. We want to take action to address that, as we have said before. We've also said before, there is also a lot of focus on measures that happen after a woman has been exposed to all kinds of painful experiences that women experience in this journey. So we want to ramp up prevention so that women do not even experience these. So generation equality is about acceleration. It is about the resources that are needed, and it is about preventing the acts before they even happen to women.
Thank you, Madam Funzile and SRSG Patton. Indeed, we have not finished what we started, and that is why we're here today. So we move on now to the intergenerational call to action on the compact, and it is with pleasure that I'll welcome our next speaker, Gracia Michelle, co-founder and deputy chair of the Elders and chair of Accord's Board of Trustees. And joining her is Caroline Kitione, the regional focal point at Shifting the Power Coalition in Fiji. So Madam Gracia Michelle will speak first, and then we'll go straight to Caroline Kitione. Madam Gracia, over to you.
Thank you very, very much indeed. And I would like to say hello to all the champions of gender equality, namely our own Phumzile Ngcuka and other colleagues whom I have the pleasure of having been working with for so long. Because my time is very short, I'll try to be very concise. 20 years ago, when we adopted the 1325 resolution to now, the nature of conflict has been changing. Not always we have confronting two sides in the conflict where you can have an opportunity to sit down and negotiate. I'm talking of experiences like on my continent, like in Mali, in Somalia, in Burkina Faso, now northern Mozambique. You hardly will have from the other side who are terrorists to sit down with them and negotiate. And this is one aspect. But because the type of violence they cause on women, adolescents, and children, on families, on community, is also unprecedented. It has been escalating. It is much deeper dimensions of how they inflict pain, loss, and devastation at a personal, family, and community level. It is my humble suggestion that perhaps we need to revisit the framework and, more importantly, the content of what we provide as humanitarian action and even processes of recovery from conflict to peace. I will not develop much this, but I want to say that there are actions which we have not been deep enough in attending, which for me are the fundamentals of peace and security for people who are affected, but for communities which are affected, and even for the future of peace and security of a country. I think we need to revisit this. Second, I think we need to take into account that these women, adolescents, and girls, they are not objects. They are not only victims of conflict. They are resourceful. They do have inner strength, which we need to enact and to enhance, to help them to recognize in themselves the ability and the agency of taking control of their own life again after conflict. And my observation is that our actions have been much more focusing on assisting materially. But these women, adolescents and girls, their body, their spirit, and their soul, they need to be supported to regain the wholeness of who they are from inside. And the programs directed to this, in my view, are very weak. And we need to strengthen this, because the secret of peace and security in future, it has to come from those who have been directly affected, to be the one who become the voice first, and they help us to reshape the agenda of how best we can reunite and reconcile, even to reconcile communities, to reconcile our nations, so that we have stability and we have peace and we have prosperity. So I'm appealing that we should look at those who are directly affected in a different way, in a more comprehensive way, in a much deeper way, in which we take into account all the dimensions of how to rebuild themselves, to rebuild their families, and to rebuild their communities.
Move you on to the next speaker. I'm welcoming Caroline Kitione. Over to you.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to join you from Fiji. Growing up in the Pacific, I have seen low-lying islands disappearing or becoming uninhabitable. Island communities continuing to face the fallout of nuclear tests. Women brokering peace following armed conflict and political crisis, all while we remain a region with the lowest levels of women's political representation in parliament and local government. COVID-19 has highlighted the critical role of local and national organizations to lead in emergency response. As a movement, we continue to rise to the challenges of this crisis because a systems change is needed. In short, young, diverse women are shifting the power in the Pacific. As young women, we are part of a new wave of feminist learning and collaboration supporting local leadership to define what safe and peaceful community to us. We're redefining the humanitarian agenda to ensure that it works for us. As Pacific women, we're claiming our space in decision-making around urgent issues such as climate change and health emergencies. We're redesigning the table, but we're also intentional with our invitation. We're creating a space that welcomes the diversity that is missing from existing spaces. And that is why, as the Shifting the Power Coalition signs on the Women, Peace and Security Humanitarian Action Compact, we're building of Pacific who have paved the way since the Beijing Conference and the adoption of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. We've demonstrated our commitment to forging equal and equitable partnerships across a network of grassroots, intergenerational, and inclusive movements in 7 Pacific Island countries. We're putting a focus on strengthening the collective power, the influence, and leadership of diverse Pacific women, including women with disabilities, young women-led organizations, and rural and coastal women's networks across the triple nexus: humanitarian, peace-building, and development. With ActionAid Australia, a humanitarian organization that works from feminist principles and is a co-founding partner of the coalition, we will continue to use a feminist funding model for rapid response in times of crisis. Together, we're working to ensure that appropriate and accessible resources reach women when they need it, to deliberate, participate, design, and deliver what works for diverse women in their communities. As young women, we expect a shift in power, which means greater commitment to intersectionality and recognizing our collective responsibility to give us the future that we deserve, the future that we need. There is an expectation of us to do more and to do better, and while we are committed to do so as young women, we ask that you work with us by fulfilling your responsibilities to lead by example and to strengthen your own commitments towards a gender-equal future. Our approach to the Triple Nexus agenda reflects our expertise and daily lived realities. As young Pacific women, we will continue to co-create partnerships to increase the influence, visibility, and release of local women leaders in humanitarian, political, and peace processes and decision-making. This approach can address the drivers of inequalities, ensure protection with dignity, and build on diverse women's local and indigenous knowledge and strong community networks to achieve more effective and accountable crisis prevention and humanitarian response. Together, let us work to shift the power from the mat to the policy table.
Thank you very much, Grash Michelle and Caroline Kitione, for those powerful words. Now, despite being disproportionately affected by conflict and violence, women made up only 13% of negotiators, 6% of mediators, and 6% of signatories in 1,860 peace processes between 1992 and 2019. Additionally, even as 500 million women in 31 countries and territories live in protracted crisis and are increasingly affected by human rights violations, research shows that humanitarian programs targeted at and tailored for women and girls are disproportionately underfunded. Women peace builders and human rights face numerous threats to their physical, emotional, political, and economic safety. Women in conflict and crisis situations, including refugees, displaced, or stateless, face an immensely high risk of human rights violation and sexual violence. The threats that many women worldwide face daily are highly gendered. They have their identity, roles, and social norms used against them. And young women particularly are calling for co-leadership and not to be tokenized. The Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact seeks to address this. In order for us to move from rhetoric to reality, efforts to build sustainable peace must elevate women's voices, expertise, rights, and leadership, and ensure that traditionally underrepresented and marginalized voices guide decision-making and take a gender response approach to funding, policy, and programming decisions. Recognizing the immense challenges that women and girls around the world are facing, as well as the intrinsic value and depth and breadth of their expertise, the Compact calls us to intentionally reshape peace, security, and humanitarian processes to systematically dismantle barriers and meaningfully include women, including peace builders, refugees, other forcibly displaced and stateless women and girls, in the decisions that impact their lives. It also asks us to do so without discrimination to their diverse and intersecting identities. The Compact builds on years of work on women, peace and security and humanitarian action at global, regional, national, and local levels. Through advocacy from civil society organizations, member states, and WPS and humanitarian action advocates, the establishment of the Compact was officially announced on the 1st of July 2020. The Compact now has 35 board and catalytic members who worked diligently alongside experts from all geographical regions over the past 6 months to shape the Compact. The work has produced the framework which we affirm here today. Signatories to the Compact will take action across 5 key areas. Firstly, financing the WPS agenda and gender equality in humanitarian programming. Second, women's meaningful participation in peace processes. Women's economic security, access to resources and other essential services, leadership and agency across peace, security, and humanitarian sectors. And finally, the protection and promotion of women's human rights in conflict and crisis contexts. Investments made by signatories will be financial, programmatic, advocacy, or policy. The Compact will focus on the implementation of existing commitments to women, peace and security and humanitarian action by establishing a voluntary monitoring and accountability process to realize existing commitments, strengthening coordination across existing mechanisms, systems, partnerships, and capacities. And finally, promoting financing for and wide awareness and visibility of the Women, Peace and Security agenda and on gender equality in humanitarian action. Over the past few days, we have seen a groundswell of leaders and changemakers rally to the call to take concrete, transformational action that will drive progress for the next 5 years. We are thrilled to announce that more than 100 governments, UN agencies, regional organizations, women's and youth networks, and private sector organizations have already signed the compact. Represented among the compact signatories are members of the UN Security Council. We have also received endorsement from some of the largest regional bodies across the globe and over 65 civil society organizations. In the weeks to come, the compact will expand its geographical reach, ensuring that action for gender equality in peace, security, and humanitarian action is being taken in every corner of the world and at all levels. So, here today, in the company of the world leaders, human rights advocates, peace builders, change makers, youth activists, and above all, feminists, it is my deep and profound honor to officially announce launch of the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action. I join board and Catholic members to invite every government, the entire UN system, the full spectrum of regional and civil society organizations, academic institutions, and members of the sector in every corner of the globe to join this movement for action. We need action, not only promises. 5 years of action starts today. Thank you very much, everybody who's just joined us. We are here for the launch of the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact launch. And to kick us off with that program today, we have Erna Solberg, the Prime Minister of Norway, who is joining us via video.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, women are underrepresented in peace and security efforts. As a result, these efforts become less effective. We know for a fact that including women leads to a more lasting peace. More often than not, the rights, priorities, and needs of women are not taken into account. Their point of view is not heard. Women do not have access to decision-making on equal terms. Women peace builders are often stigmatized and exposed to threats. The pandemic has made the situation for many women even more difficult. Violence against women has increased, including sexual and gender-based violence. And women stand stronger together. Women networks are more important than ever, including those of women peace builders. Fortunately, we have seen new networks emerge and flourish, including on digital platforms. And Norway is proud to be a board member of the Compact and a strong advocate for this agenda. And we remain determined to promote progress. Our next National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security is case in point. We will pledge 4 times as much funding, because ambitious plans must come with financial resources. From next year, we aim to deliver on this target. We will continue to promote the participation of women in peace processes. And we will commit to the framework set out for advocacy and policy work in the Compact. We will lead by example when appointing delegation, mediators, special representatives and envoys, and urge parties to conflict to follow our lead. We will push for gender balance and inclusion mechanisms in all phases of peace processes. Combating conflict-related sexual violence and gender-based violence in humanitarian crisis remains a priority. And Norway will work to enhance protection and services for victims, and seek to strengthen compliance with international legal obligations. We will emphasize access to sexual and reproductive health services in the humanitarian response to armed conflict. Norway has joined the Action Coalition on Bodily Autonomy and Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights. Women and girls must decide over their own bodies so that they can go to school, to work, and participate in society. When rules, culture, or other obstacles do not stop them, women can be anything they aspire to be. In Norway, for example, women are soldiers, police officers, pilots, captains and doctors, and prime ministers. As an elected member of the Security Council, Norway will work hard to promote the Women, Peace and Security agenda. We shall strive to make lasting impact on the ground, because this is what this compact is about: turning commitments into real improvements for women and men affected by conflict. Thank you.
Turning commitments into real improvements, and that is what the compact is about. Thank you, Prime Minister Erna Solberg, for your remarks, and Norway's pledge to commit 4 times as much funding to achieving its next national action plan. So we go now to Ms. Gillian Triggs, Assistant High Commissioner for Protection at the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, UNHCR. Ms. Triggs, over to you.
Thank you very much, Yemisi. And may I say what a huge pleasure it is for me to be in the company of such powerful, effective, articulate women committed to the humanitarian cause, but most particularly committed to ensuring that women have a strong participatory role in the events of life globally that affect their world. May I then, as representing the UN Refugee Agency and the High Commissioner for Refugees, and as a board member that has been encouraging the development of this compact, congratulate UN Women and all those who've been working for many years and over recent months to launch this action compact for women, peace, security, and humanitarian work. The compact will be more than aspirational. We already know that the 5 years of action that starts today will be supported by $40 billion in new investments, the largest ever collective infusion of financial resources into global gender equality. UNHCR is proud to contribute to the compact and to ensure that they are more than words on the page, but that they are implemented in practice. So some might say, why is this so important to the UN Refugee Agency? Why do we stress the importance of gender inequality on the people within our mandate? Asylum seekers, refugees, people displaced in their own country, and the many millions that remain stateless. Well, the reasons are sadly clear. The High Commissioner has recently announced that 82.4 million people have been forcibly displaced throughout the world within our mandate. 47% of them are women and girls. They're displaced from their own country and they seek international protection across national boundaries, fleeing well-known and understood root causes: discrimination, persecution, environmental degradation and climate change, but most critically, endemic global gender inequality and injustice and an imbalance of power. All are multipliers that lead ultimately to conflict, violence, and gross human rights. Yet, as has been pointed out by Pamela, these women remain sitting in the corridors. In this time of COVID, gender inequality and the power imbalance has been illuminated by the pandemic as almost no other catastrophe can. The rise in gender-based violence throughout the world has been striking and well documented, as women are trapped in health restrictions and dangerous domestic situations, often the first to lose their jobs, vulnerable to eviction and exploitation of various kinds. We fear, sadly, that the huge gains made in education for girls will now be lost because many girls will not be returning to school as COVID subsides.
Thank you, Ms. Gillian.
Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry to cut you off there. Thank you, Ms. Gillian Triggs, for those important words and reminders of the situation in the world. And now it's a pleasure to invite our next speaker, Madam Bineta Diop, the African Union's Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security. Madam Diop, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yemisi. Let me first bring the congratulatory remarks from the African Union Commission to the government of Mexico and France, as well UN Women for convening this forum. In Africa, we have made great progress, as you know. More than half our member states have, committed to the agenda by adopting a national action. However, the gains we have made are far from parity and thus remain below what we want to achieve, a just and equitable society. The Compact on WPS provides us with an opportunity to scale up our action. Building on we already have, such as the Africa Continental Result Framework for monitoring and reporting on the implementation of WPS. Today is not a day for speeches, but a firm commitment for action. Our action will be geared toward delivery accountability. The AUC, under the leadership of Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, and through my office, is delighted to be a board member signatory of the Compact. So we will, in partnership with member states, the regional economic community, commemorate the implementation of WPS and humanitarian action. By doing advocacy, capacity building, and enhancing accountability of action to progress the agenda. We now have 30 member states with national action plan. By 2020, we want to have 50-50 member states, 55. So all member states with action plan, as well as the regional economic communities. We will continue to build solid network and partnership, including the Africa Forum on WPS, the Network of Women Mediators, FEMWISE, the Africa Women Leaders Network, and the Network of Centers of Excellence on WPS. Let me end by calling upon all of us to walk the talk and make this compact a true change maker, gender equality in peace, security, and action, a true reality for the daily lives of women and girls across the world. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Madam Diop. Madam Diop there asking us all to walk the talk. Up next is Dr. Ulfat Mahmoud, a steering committee member of the Feminist Humanitarian Network and General Director of Palestinian Women's Humanitarian Organization. Dr. Mahmoud, you have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, feminists, women and men, sisters and brothers, and everyone. Let me first tell you a little bit of my experience on women's rights and women's work and women's rights organization. When we were established in 1990 in a refugee camp in Lebanon, myself and a group of active women decided to establish a woman's body to work with women and to focus on women's issues. It was very difficult, lots of challenges, and we kept our work and we decided to stand up. You know, in Lebanon, NGOs are affiliated with political parties or religious group or decided to be a woman and only woman organization. And that was very difficult. At the end, they said, oh, okay, they are a small group of women. Let them do what they want to do. They will fail. And look, after 28 years, and we survived, and we're still working. So when women insist on doing something, they reach their aim. And here I am representing the Feminist Humanitarian Network. As Feminist Humanitarian Network, we are extremely pleased to have humanitarian action included in this compact. As you know, always during emergencies, during crises, women and girls and the rights of women and girls are affected badly. So this is very critical to include them in our global commitments to advance the rights of women and girls everywhere. As FHN and women's rights organizations, networks, and feminist movements in the Global South responding to humanitarian crisis, we think that the financing of our work as a critical humanitarian actors, and this contribute the lack of fund to women's humanitarian work or rights organization or to women's organization, it's actually make our work undermining our power and our work, and to the essential work that we do. So this is why we need to have fund to our projects to be able to overcome all the challenges and all the barriers we are facing. We are very pleased that the Compact seeks to address this issue, and through it, member states will commit to providing direct assistance to women-led and women's rights organizations. This funding will ensure that our efforts are sustainable, and as I mentioned earlier, it will remove all the barriers that stand in our way. We are also extremely pleased that this Compact commands signatories to recognize and support women's leadership and full, equal, and meaningful participation across peace, security, and the humanitarian sectors. During COVID-19, FHN, they conduct a survey, a research, and this documented clearly the extent to which women's rights organizations in the Global South are excluded from decision-making in humanitarian action, and the lack of recognition that we receive for the essential frontline efforts that we lead. Actually, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important to sign this compact. So it's a request from all of you who are attending this webinar to sign up and make commitment. And after 5 years, what happened to your commitment? It's very important and it's very essential.
Thank you, Dr. Olfat Mahmoud. Thank you very much for your remarks.
Thank you.
We
as women, I'm a refugee myself. As women, as a refugee woman, I want to be a survivor, not a victim. And to ensure that we survivors, we need your help. And we need to work together, regardless where we are, everywhere in the world. So let us feel that we are survivors, and don't forget to sign up the compact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olfat Mahmoud. Certainly, the call for action must all be accompanied by accessible funding and resources, and it's great to see your commitment to building the capacity for fundraising of local women organizations. Our next speaker is Ms. Mavic Cabrera Boleza, CEO and founder of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders. Ms. Cabrera Boleza, over to you.
Thank you so much. The Global Network of Women Peace Builders is a civil society board member of the Generation Equality Forum Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action. Our organization commitment as a board member is to ensure the meaningful participation of women's rights organizations and civil society groups working in conflict-affected situations and humanitarian emergencies around the world in the work of the Compact. The Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action is a result of civil society's advocacy. Like the groundbreaking United Nations Council Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace and Security that was advocated for and co-drafted by civil society, we also co-drafted the Compact framework. At the core of the Compact are the voices of women and young women who live through violent conflicts and humanitarian emergencies every single day. Many of them cannot be in Paris, nor in front of a computer or mobile phone to join us today. And I'm not only talking about the money to buy a plane ticket or connect to the internet. I'm talking about the lack of recognition, support, and enabling conditions for local women and young women to take their rightful seat in all places where decisions on peace and security, humanitarian action, gender equality, and politics are made. This is why the global network of women peace builders and hundreds of civil society groups fought for the intentional integration of women peace and security, youth peace and security, and humanitarian action in the Generation Equality Forum. So today, we celebrate and express our gratitude to the member states, including especially the governments of France and Mexico, UN Women and other UN entities, and regional organizations who have supported the establishment of the Compact. We are all privileged to be part of this global movement. At the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, we are inspired by what the Compact can deliver. Greater investment into existing commitments on women, peace, and security, and gender equality and humanitarian action, and greater accountability for their implementation. However, lessons learned from decades of civil society work on these issues tell us that good frameworks and policies are not enough. A policy or framework is only as good as its implementation. Therefore, we call for the implementation of specific actions presented in the Compact framework. We are excited to do our part. As a signatory to the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact, the Global Network of Women Peace Builders will expand and reinforce our partnerships with national and women's rights organizations to strengthen their capacity and eligibility to receive and manage donor funding and eliminate barriers to financing for grassroots civil society. We will expand and strengthen partnerships with youth-led and young women-focused organizations and networks to embed their priorities in youth peace and security and women peace and security advocacy. We will provide technical and advisory support to women mediators and women peace builders in peace processes and support them at all levels and stages, including through creating and sustaining systematic links between formal and informal peace processes. We will also recognize and engage men and boys as partners in addressing and reversing harmful gender norms and promote the inclusion of gender-related provisions in all ceasefire and peace agreements in humanitarian assistance and delivery. I invite all of you to become signatories of the Compact. Together, let's turn words into action, rhetoric into reality, and commitments into achievements. Let's use the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact to build a vibrant global movement on existing commitments. A movement that recognizes local women and youth peace builders and humanitarian actors as the leader influencers. In the deepest of our hearts, we know that they are the pioneers in advancing gender equality, sustainable peace, and feminist humanitarian action. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. A policy or framework is only as good as its implementation. Those are great and poignant words there from Ms. Cabrera Baleza. And thank you to all our speakers so far who have shared their commitment to the Compact. Now we'll take a short break now to hear from the first of our two Changemaker speakers. And first up is Ms. Mtithel Mahmood, a Sudanese-American poet and UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador. Ms. Mahmood, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction, and it's been really wonderful hearing all the beautiful words shared here today. I'm going to contribute a poem and a couple of remarks at the end. This poem is called The Schoolhouse. The fire burned all night as we sang songs of change. Huddled close by the east side of the school, how the baobab trees would scrape the sky, how the water would reach down to the root of the well, how the sand ran red with flecks of gold, how the English came and left their mark. Each village a land of the living ghosts, the grandpa who taught in the time of Nimeri, the aunt born at the start of a 30-year overdue uprising. The wind blew shards that night, cutting our voices short, dicing through our frantic conversations as our stories were told from every corner of our land. The medical students made fun of the humanities kids. I, a visitor of both worlds, a settler of none, found myself clamped tightly between a group of girls who pulled me close without question, who wrapped me tight in the embrace of hope. Our hearts turned all outward until the meaty bits shone, damp and bloodied by our sheer audacity to still bleed love into this place that swallowed us whole and spit us out generations later, still fighting for our lives. We slept in 2 huts by the north side of the school, and the boys all huddled under the roofless place, where in the morning students would gather each day. 4 walls and the hot sun beating down on their hungry backs, but not tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and I stand at the front of the schoolhouse, no windows, no door, no roof, 4 walls, 1 chalkboard, 8 benches. The sky is auburn that morning, turning sheet white with the creeping sun. My students crammed in with every teacher, parent, sheikh, engineer, sister we could find. Our green scarves of chain wrapped gently around our necks, doubled as masks to keep the dust out when we marched ever eastward toward the capital. Our journey of 1,000 miles began with a single desk. Me standing at the front, tongue-tied, core shaken by the magnitude of what we were doing. The words wouldn't leave my mouth. I've stood on both sides of the classroom before, but this time, unsure of what to say, I closed my eyes. Old memories of studying under the burning sun, staved off only by the cool shade of the trees outside our homes, competed in my mind with recent days spent climbing the white stone steps of my university. Such a stranger I felt to my own life, visitor of both worlds, settler of none. In that moment, I pushed back against the decades that pressed down on my shoulders and the shoulders of those before me. I peeled away the weight of oppression. I unwrapped entire layers of grief. I unpacked and unlearned until I could see the girl I once was staring straight up at me from another life. And I looked past her to see the little girls who were looking up at me now. From that roofless classroom in the middle of that little town beyond the hills of Al-Fashir. Is this what it means to be human? To have a second chance at life in the ones that follow? To make mistakes so that the younger ones don't have to? To feel that hope is lost only to discover that it lies dormant, resting, waiting for the moment we dare to acknowledge her? There is a silencing that happens in our lives. Curiosity is something we're born with, and somewhere between the cradle and the grave, we lose that will to speak up. Bursting at the seams to share, yet lacking the full capacity, children will literally invent words to describe the things they don't have language for. And yet us, fully grown and minds brimming from a life full of learning, have the capacity to express volumes. But we bite our tongues, whether it be from shock, hopelessness, violence, fatigue, the subtle assertion over time and time again that we don't matter, that our words don't matter, that it's always been this way. Whether it be from love lost or tragedy found, our fear, in the simplest terms, we lose something. But not today, not anymore, so I spoke and I still speak. I speak for the mother who couldn't write. I speak for the hunger in every child. I speak for the villages, the cities, the states. I speak for the will to reimagine it all. I speak for the little girl who wanted to grow up and be a poet. I speak for her pen. I speak for her friends. I speak for the day we could reawaken the hope in every child. I walked, we sang, we marched, thousands joined. I came back to the roof on that school. Ms. Zainab, the principal, said it was just in time for the rainy season. That if we hadn't called, they would have taken the kids 25 kilometers a day away just for the chance to learn. A year later, the dictator fell, but the roof is still standing. A year later, I can hear the voices echo off those walls, rain falling on a tin roof, but landing on a brand new day. Thank you. I just want to say that the reason that I wrote that poem was because of the peace movement we were able to start in Sudan, and I was able to take what we learned from the people and act as an independent, unaffiliated advisor, the youngest, to the peace agreements in Juba last year. And the change that we need is not just one girl or one woman succeeding, but an entire generation moving forward with all of us at their backs, all of us moving forward into safety, into freedom, a world that not only accepts but welcomes our existence and celebrates our lives, supports our well-being, upholds our freedom and our humanity. You have to put vulnerable people at the forefront of change, not as tokens, but as the leaders of the change. Please listen to what the people are saying. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And your words really resonated with me there. You said visitor of both worlds and settler of none, making mistakes so that the younger ones don't have to, and speaking for the mother who couldn't write. Thank you very much, Tithel Mahmood. Now, we return now to hear from more of our signatories. First up, joining us via video, we have Samantha Power, Administrator at the United States Agency for International Development.
Good afternoon. I come bearing a simple message. If you want peace in this world, trust women to deliver it. Across decades of conflict, the research points to the same conclusion. If more women are represented in negotiating peace, that peace is more likely to hold. The more women signatories there are to a peace agreement, the more durable the peace and the less likely a country may relapse into conflict or civil war. Peace agreements signed by women have higher quality provisions and show a higher rate of implementation in the 10 years following conflict. No matter the continent, whether in El Salvador, Northern Ireland, Papua New Guinea, or Liberia, the result is the same. These virtuous effects of women's participation also show up in the longer-term stability and prosperity of a society. Higher levels of gender equality in a society are associated with a lower propensity for conflict both between and within states. And the most rapid post-conflict reductions in poverty happen in areas where women report higher levels of empowerment. This evidence is why, in 2017, the U.S. became the first country in the world to pass a comprehensive domestic law on women, peace, and security, the WPS Act. It is why USAID, the agency I am privileged to lead, has been intensely focused on ensuring women are represented in peace processes throughout the world and hold positions of power in countries recovering from conflict. In Kosovo, we've supported women-led and women-focused civil society organizations for decades and empowered women party activists to develop policy initiatives, build local support, and advance their profile in local media. That support continues to bear fruit today. Last year, for the first time ever, the head of parliament was a woman, who was recently elected Kosovo's second woman president. And in recent elections, nearly 40% of women had won seats in parliament outright, on merit and not by quota. And in Guinea, we're supporting women to serve as peace ambassadors to address ongoing political and social turbulence. These women have worked to identify and facilitate the timely, peaceful resolution of nearly 50 community-level conflicts in the country, while also leading educational outreach events for citizens on conflict resolution. And as a result of this program, many of these same women have been promoted to local political and administrative positions. To cement and expand this important work, the U.S. launched a strategy last year to advance women's meaningful participation in preventing and resolving conflict, countering violent extremism, and building post-conflict peace and stability. To date, we've committed over $400 million to help implement this strategy, including $95 million to protect women and girls from violence in humanitarian emergencies, and we've supported the participation of over 184,000 women in leadership, conflict mediation, legal, political, and peace-building processes. We will create rapid response funding mechanisms so we can directly support local women peace builders and organizations to help make sure they have a seat at the table in securing peace. Greater strategic attention, increased funding, rapid response funds, these are steps we urge all nations to take when it comes to enshrining a role for women in matters of peace and security. Because here's another thing the data shows. Despite the benefits of including women in winding down conflict, they are still frequently blocked and kept out of peace processes. Since 1992, about 70% of all peace processes did not include women signatories or mediators. This isn't just shameful, it's ignorant. It makes our world more dangerous. So as we sign on to the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact, something the Biden administration is eager to do, let's make sure we live up to its values and live up to its commitments. And let's build a more peaceful world because of it. I thank you.
If you want peace in this world, trust women to deliver it. A very clear statement there from Ms. Power of USAID. Thank you. Now, our next speaker is Ms. Elga Maria Schmid, Secretary General of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The OSCED is the world's largest security-oriented intergovernmental organization and a catalytic member of the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action. And we have a video statement from Ms. Helga Maria Schmid.
Ladies and gentlemen, the road to gender equality is long, full of obstacles and possible setbacks. To get there requires courage, perseverance, and our full commitment. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a major setback, deepening existing gender inequalities. Its impact on our economies and societies has affected women disproportionately. We have also seen a dramatic surge in violence against women and girls. So we need to step up our efforts now. The OSCE is proud to be a catalytic member of the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action. It will help us strengthen our efforts to achieve gender equality. The OSCE's strong commitments are embedded in the 2004 OSCE Action Plan for the Promotion of Gender Equality in over 40 Ministerial Council decisions and in our extensive work integrating a gender perspective in our efforts to prevent and resolve conflicts. Let me give you a few examples of how we implement our commitments. The OSCE supports participating states in developing national action plans on women, peace and security. 40 out of 57 participating states already have a national action plan, twice as many as in 2010. We train officials in law enforcement and the judiciary on combating gender-based violence. We support organizations that work with survivors, and we facilitate the exchange of best practices. Stronger international efforts are needed to address the root causes of gender-based violence and to strengthen the relevant legislation. So the OSCE has also joined the Action Coalition on Gender-Based Violence. To promote women's economic empowerment, we support women entrepreneurs in Central Asia and Southeastern Europe and create women's professional networks in all our sub-regions. We also aim to address the impact of the digital gender divide on the future of work. Within the organization itself, the gender parity strategy aims to ensure that all our staff have an equal chance to contribute and succeed, and that our work environment is safe, inclusive and fair. As a catalytic member of the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action, the OSCE will focus on two priority areas of the Compact. First, we will work towards women's full, equal and meaningful participation and inclusion of gender-related provisions in peace processes. We will do this by bringing together networks of women, peace builders and mediators, providing them with training to build their skills. We will also strive to ensure that young women peace builders participate in peace processes in the OSCE region. And second, we will support women's leadership and full, equal and meaningful participation across peace, security and humanitarian sectors. Our Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, ODIHR, supports participating states in developing policies that enhance a gender-responsive and human rights-compliant institutional culture, as well as women's leadership and agency in security and defense sectors. The new Gender and Security Toolkit, developed jointly by ODIHR, UN Women and DCAF, will support policy advice and capacity building, helping to integrate a gender perspective into security sector governance and reform. Through these and other initiatives, we will scale up our partnerships with women's networks to advance their leadership across the humanitarian, development, peace and security sectors. The OSCE is fully committed to the Compact's success. Through our concrete actions and commitments, we hope to see more women using their expertise in conflict prevention, mediation and other aspects of comprehensive security at all levels, local, national and regional. More gender-sensitive peace agreements, more women represented and meaningfully participating in security institutions, and stronger networks of women change makers working in security, human rights, media and beyond. This will not happen overnight, but by working together with our full commitment, I'm certain we can make real progress towards gender equality in the months and years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Helga Maria Schmid, and great to hear about the Gender and Security Toolkit, which tracks 10 years of global developments in gender and security and comprises of 9 tools and a series of policy briefs. I'm sure we'll all find it informative and valuable. Next, we have Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations at the United Nations Department for Peace Operations. Mr. Lacroix joins us by video.
Excellencies, colleagues and friends, I welcome the Compact on Women, Peace and Humanitarian Action, an urgent and timely initiative for transformative actions to achieve gender equality and full implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda in the triple nexus of peace, development and humanitarian action. The Department of Peace Operations is at the forefront of accelerating the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda in line with the Secretary General's Action for Peacekeeping initiative and his call to action to peacekeeping partners to embrace feminist approaches to transform women's full, equal and meaningful participation. I have also made it my personal mission to champion the integration of gender equality and women, peace and security priorities in all aspects of our work as a powerful tool for effective peacekeeping. Women continue to be at the front lines of peace and security. Women are leading conflict resolution efforts. They are often informally brokering peace, yet they are excluded from formal decision-making processes. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated existing gender inequalities and created even more challenges. As a result, ensuring women's leadership and participation in peace and political processes has become even more urgent now. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 5 years, we in the Department of Peace Operations have redoubled our efforts to implement our Women, Peace and Security mandated tasks. This has helped expand the political space for women in peacekeeping contexts. We have also invested in increasing the diversity of personnel in peacekeeping operations, so both men and women contribute meaningfully in delivering peacekeeping mandates. Dear friends, it does not stop here. The stock-taking in relation to the 20th anniversary of the United Nations Security Council 1325 showed that we still have a long way to go. As a signatory and board member to the Compact, we, in the Department of Peace Operations, will accelerate actions to strengthen women's full, equal and meaningful participation at all stages of peace processes and support women's leadership and agency. This is a political imperative and a non-negotiable priority for us. We will continue to use our good offices and the convening power of the United Nations to build partnerships to advocate for women's participation and provide technical support and policy guidance to ensure women are sitting at the peace and political tables, not around them. We will harness data and gender analysis to inform our work and to enhance accountability and leadership, so our investments are transformative, and we will use strategic communications to elevate women's voices and leadership. We look forward to working together with you, our partners, to make the Women, Peace and Security agenda a reality in the coming 5 years and beyond, and I encourage all peacekeeping and peacebuilding partners to join us. We must make women's participation and leadership a norm. Only then can we transform political crisis into sustainable peace. Thank you.
We must indeed make women's participation and leadership a non-negotiable norm. Thank you, Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix. Our next video statement before we move back to live statements comes from 5 youth activists from an organization called Our Generation of Inclusive Peace, OGIP. And in the second part of the video, we also have a message from President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone.
Generation for Inclusive Peace is a global youth-led organization working to make peace and security spaces more inclusive, intersectional, and decolonized. We do this through our 3 pillars of research, advocacy, and partnerships. We are so pleased to be here as catalytic members to discuss the future of Women, Peace and Security Humanitarian Action Compact, along with the imperative role of young people in achieving its success and the support that is needed for youth-led organizations in implementing the compact actions. As we have discovered through our engagement in generation equality, there are so many barriers to young people's participation. These barriers must be considered when looking to youth-led organizations to play a role in the implementation of the compact. Youth-led organizations, including our Generation of Peace, often function with little or no budget and limited capacities. A specific support must be put in place to ensure their role in the implementation of the compact, alongside continued work to address the systemic barriers in place that impact young people's participation in peace and security spaces and global processes such as generation equality.
The Women, Peace and Security Humanitarian Action Compact provides an opportunity to address these barriers and safeguard the meaningful participation and leadership of young people in peace and security spaces and global processes, placing them as leaders and experts in their own right. The implementation of the compact provides an opportunity for young people and youth-led organizations to bring the compact to life, contextualizing it for the peace-building work they're already undertaking in the communities, countries, and globally. There's widespread acknowledgement that young people in all of their diversity are increasingly playing an active role in working for inclusive and sustainable peace, and therefore need to be central actors in the next stages of the compact. Our Generation for Inclusive Peace will be committing to advocacy and programmatic actions under 2 of the compact's thematic areas. Firstly, women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in the inclusion of gender-related provisions in peace processes. And secondly, women's leadership and agency across peace, security, and humanitarian sectors. Our contributions will be led by OGIP's community, for example, the OGIP Advocates Network, a group of 27 young peace builders from 20 different countries of which we are all members.
Our advocacy actions will focus on increasing all women and girls' participation in peace processes, particularly marginalized groups, the promotion of equitable progressive social norms, attitudes and behavior towards women and girls, and the inclusive and diverse leadership of women. Work towards collaboratively with youth peace builders who are also part of OGIP's Advocates Network, as well as through teaming up with our other youth-led partner organizations. Through our research pillar, we will develop position papers and youth-led research that will put a spotlight on youth-led work being undertaken, and we will build youth-led campaigns on progressive social norms, centering youth voices and experiences.
Our programmatic actions will be focused on supporting women and girls' participation in peace processes, documenting knowledge and sharing best practices on women and girls' contribution to peace and security, and building a feminist movement that harnesses women and girls' leadership, in particular through equitable and intergenerational partnerships and relationships between INGOs and grassroots organizations. We will work towards these actions by bringing together young women peace builders in our Advocates Network to share experiences and ideas, creating guidance and capturing recommendations. Further, we will engage with current partners and develop new partnerships to strengthen the intergenerational perspective in the feminist movement and advocate for women and girls' leadership in the peace and security sector.
We hope our work on these actions and the work of the Compact more generally contributes to a shift in narrative and action. Young people in all their diversity, and in particular young women, not only have the right to participate in decision-making that affects their lives, but are best placed to respond to the issues affecting them. Through focusing on meaningful participation in peace processes, we hope that in 5 years' time, decision-making will be more inclusive and representative of those affected by conflict, in particular young people. Further than this, we as a global community must go beyond simply adding young people to peace processes. Underlying systemic inequality must be addressed. The structures of peace processes themselves must be questioned, and the root causes of conflict and instability must be responded to. Young people are working for sustainable and inclusive peace and imagining a new reality. Global processes such as generation equality need to listen and to ensure they can participate in order to realise this reality.
Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me from the outset commend UN Women, the co-host governments of Mexico and France, stakeholders and all partners for their support and dedication to the Generation Equality Forum signatory process. I thank the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Secretariat for their hard work in making this compact framework document available to us in record time. To all Compact Board and catalytic members, the UN entities, the Secretariat, and civil society organizations that have worked assiduously to develop the compact framework document, I say congratulations. Our hard work has truly paid off. Today, Sierra Leone joins like-minded stakeholders at the Generation Equality Forum held in this beautiful city of Paris to reaffirm our commitment, align our efforts, and adopt a holistic approach that will address the situation of women and girls. My government stands in solidarity with the numerous global gender champions in this call to action to do more for our women and girls globally. We believe the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact is a bold step towards accountability for the implementation of existing normative frameworks. The year 2020 was pivotal for gender equality and women's empowerment. In spite of the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women and girls globally, we were able to commemorate such landmark events on gender equality and women's empowerment as Beijing +25, the 20th anniversary of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, and 10 years of the existence of UN Women. We are already in the second year of the decade of action on SDGs. There's an urgent need, therefore, to develop a holistic agenda that we galvanize transformative actions by all actors towards the full implementation of the agenda on women, peace and security, and humanitarian action. I am on this multi-stakeholder platform today to declare Sierra Leone as a signatory to the Compact and to make bold commitments on how we intend to drive the Compact towards effective implementation of the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action agenda within the next 5 years. In that regard, Sierra Leone commits to taking transformative action across 2 out of the 5 thematic priority areas. First is financing WPS agenda and gender equality and humanitarian programming. This has been problematic since the adoption of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. My government will set up a basket funding mechanism that will include contributions from the government of Sierra Leone, our bilateral partners, UN agencies, civil society organizations, and the private sector. The second thematic priority area is women's economic security, access to resources, and other essential services. We commit to converting the existing gender equality and women's empowerment policy into law. We will recruit senior gender experts to lead on gender mainstreaming and budgeting within ministries, departments, and agencies. We will invest in developing infrastructure for collating reliable gender statistics to promote and justify progressive change. Recognizing the importance of effective coordination among governments, UN agencies, CSOs, the local communities, as well as the private sector, we will develop localization guidelines and incorporate them into the development plans of local governments. These actions will facilitate greater collaboration among actors. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me close by stating that transformative actions across the thematic areas can only be achieved with sustained political will and commitment. As signatories to the Compact, let us all commit to implementing, monitoring, and reporting. We will, on our part, continue to mobilize other stakeholders around the Compact. We therefore encourage everyone to join this movement for action on the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action agenda by becoming a signatory. I thank you all for your kind attention.
You heard from the youth activists that young people are working for sustainable and inclusive peace and imagining a new reality. And this is a good summation of the importance of intergenerational dialogue and approach to peace and humanitarian action. And President Julius Maada Bio's statement also demonstrates the importance of political will in turning commitments into. Our next speaker is Her Excellency Reem Al-Hashimi, Minister of State for International Development at the United Arab Emirates. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear friends, new and old. The United Arab Emirates is honored to be part of the Generation Equality Forum, and I'd like to thank France, Mexico, and naturally UN Women for their leadership in this endeavor, which has brought us all here together this afternoon. As a board member, we are delighted to witness the launch of the Compact, as it offers tools, partnerships, and tangible steps to accelerate and implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda and place women at the forefront of decision-making sectors around the world. We see this both as a moral and economic case for gender equality in the security and humanitarian fields, and of course the broader world as well. Empowering and accounting for women and girls results in more sustainable peace, faster economic recovery, and better development outcomes for the society as a whole. We are committed to shaping the policy, advocacy, and programmatic investments in support of this evolved approach to peace and relief, and will make inclusion a matter of priority as an incoming member of the UN Security Council. In line with our commitment and support for the active participation of women in peace and security, I'm pleased to share the recent launch of the Fatma bint Mubarak Women, Peace and Security Center of Excellence. This is in line with the current Sheikha Fatma bint Mubarak WPS initiative, which will continue to provide training and capacity building to the third cohort of women peacekeeper trainees in 2022. In addition, we will collaborate with the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Sexual Violence and Conflict to include a specific program that aims to prevent and to respond to acts of sexual and gender-based violence. I'm also delighted to announce that as part of the follow-up to the Generation Equality Forum, the UAE will host a WPS conference in November during the World Expo in Dubai. We hope to draw on the millions of visitors to reach new audiences, as well as engage the thousands of companies at Expo to explore different areas in which we can implement the Compact. We also commit to working closely with Compact partners to leverage available opportunities and track progress on the implementation of these commitments and indeed accelerate towards this progress. The Compact could not have come at a more critical time given the simultaneous burdens of conflict, climate, and a global pandemic. I'm encouraged by the level of determination we're all hearing today. This forum in Paris is an important milestone in our trajectory, and the UAE is prepared to undertake this journey with you all. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Demonstrate the importance of partnership and collaboration. Thank you very much. We'll return now to hear from our second changemaker, Ms. Zarqa Yaftali, who is a renowned human rights legal research foundation in Afghanistan. Ms. Yaftali, over to you.
Speakers and esteemed participants of this important launch. I'm Zarqa Yaftali, Executive Director of Women and Children Legal Research Foundation, which is working from 2003 in Afghanistan for gender equality and women's rights issue in my country. I am also representative of civil society and High Council for National Reconciliation to share and to raise the voice of women of my country in the decision regarding to the peace process of my country. And also I am member of Women Alliance for Security. Thank you for providing me the opportunity that to be among you and to be in the launch of Women Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action. Thank you so much. I am talking from Afghanistan, a country which is in war and conflict more than 4 decades. It's about 4 decades that we are living in war and conflict. And unfortunately, we lost a large number of our population. And it is include of women of my country. I was born in war and conflict, and I grew in war and conflict. In a country that there is a war and conflict, the violation of women's rights will be there always. And I was the witness of violation of women in my society, in my country. Because of this, when I was child, I decided when I become young, I will be an activist, and I will be HRDs for women of my country and for children of my country. And because of this, I became a researcher at the first and want to research to find the problems that women and children are facing in my country. And according to the findings that I can find from the research, then I advocate and raise awareness for the people in the different level in my country to change in the minds and to change in the behavior of my people, that they are not aware from the rights that women have in my country. And in Afghanistan, when as Afghanistan is a traditional country, there is lots of problem and challenge for all people. When a woman wants to be an activist, and when a woman wants to be work for other women of their country, so there is lots of problem regarding to being of a traditional custom in my country, because Afghanistan is a traditional country, and problems that we are facing regarding to insecurity in our country. So because of this, I decided to be a peace builder and to work for coming peace in my country. I did a lot of research regarding to women meaningful participation in the peace process, and we started our advocacy that women should be part of the peace process and peace negotiation in Afghanistan. But finally, we find the opportunity to start the peace negotiation. The peace negotiation that is already ongoing between the government of Afghanistan and the Taliban, the opposite party which is in Afghanistan, and now we are in the negotiation. So this was the result of our advocacy and struggle, that now we have 4 women in the negotiation team of Afghanistan. Now we have 10 women in the High Council for National Reconciliation, but it is not enough. We are advocating and we are trying a lot to increase the number of women in the negotiation team, and also to increase the number of women in High Council for National Reconciliation, and to have women in the decision making, the decision that will be take place regarding to the future of the country, regarding to coming of peace in my country. Women and my generation are the victim of the war which is in my country, and we didn't plan for this war, but we are the victim. And because of this, we are struggling a lot for coming peace in our country, because the peace is a dream for all of us. Inside of this struggle and advocacy for women meaningful in the peace process and for women protection, unfortunately, there isn't any mechanism for women protection in Afghanistan. For women peace builder, for women that they are a mediator, and for those women that they are working for a women's right and humanitarian issue in Afghanistan. Nowadays, we are witness the killing and targeting a large number of women from civil society. Every day, women are killing and targeting in the different provinces of Afghanistan, because they are advocating for women's right. They are raising their voice to protect the achievement, and that the achievement that we gained during the past 2 decades, with lots of sacrifice and with lots of struggle. Because of this, these women, my generation, my country women, are killing and targeting nowadays because of not being any protection mechanism for themselves. And because of this, I am using the opportunity from this compact, and I want to urge to the all state entities, UN agency, and all the member of this compact, that they should be a stand with Afghanistan women. They should support Afghanistan women, and they should not put alone Afghanistan women in this critical time. I am urging you to use your emphasis and to use your influence to come a ceasefire in Afghanistan, because we are working for a women's right issue. We are working for a coming peace in our country, but without any ceasefire, we can do nothing. If there isn't any guarantee for protection of our lives, for protection of those women that they are working for, all women of Afghanistan, so it is impossible to continue our work. So ceasefire is a first demand from all people of Afghanistan, especially for women of Afghanistan. And also,
Thank you very much, Ms. Zarqa Yaftali. Sorry to cut you off there. And your trajectory and work demonstrates.
I want to finish with a short sentence that we want protection, but not without participation of women, and we don't want participation without protection of women. And on the hand, we want peace, but peace with justice.
Thank you very much. And your work there demonstrates the importance of research-backed advocacy and, of course, the protection of women peace builders. Thank you for your remarks. We return now to hear from 5 more signatories of the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact. And first up is Simon Coveney, who is the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Minister for Defence in Ireland. Minister Coveney joins us via video.
Excellencies and friends, I'm delighted to join you to launch the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action. Today's event marks the culmination of months of collaboration during which the participation of women-led organisations and youth has been particularly inspiring and energising. The Women, Peace and Security Agenda encompasses 10 UN Security Council resolutions, and there are numerous international pledges on humanitarian action. Yet even before the outbreak of COVID-19, implementation of these commitments had been severely lacking. Now, as we continue to grapple with a global pandemic, we see women-led civil society organisations and programmes that support women peace builders at risk of disappearing at the very moment that they are needed most. Deeply embedded gender inequalities have been laid bare, and the pillars of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda bear a heavier burden than ever before. We know that women are at increased risk of gender-based violence. We know that women are differentially impacted by conflict and disproportionately affected by conflict-related sexual violence. And we know that women continue to be excluded from peace negotiations despite their critical role in achieving successful outcomes. Now, as we contemplate building back better and more inclusively, it is time to act. We call on all countries to become signatories to this compact, to demonstrate their commitment to bridging the gap between aspiration and action. Ireland, a board member of the compact, is proud to have already adopted a number of actions contained in the framework. We commit to investing at least $50 million in feminist and women's rights organisations and $1.5 million in the Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund over the next 5 years. We will invest an additional $18 million on ending gender-based violence and emergencies and female genital mutilation. And we will continue to support the work of UN Women, having committed to a 60% increase in funding already this year. Ireland is also proud to have championed girls' education through the Generation Equality Forum process and to commit $73 million to the Global Partnership for Education. But finance support is not enough. The Compact also calls on signatories to strengthen their advocacy for women and women's civil society organisations. Ireland, including in the context of its current UN Security Council tenure, will maintain pressure on all peace process actors to work towards women's full, equal and meaningful participation in peace processes. We will continue to work closely with civil society and partners to ensure women's voices are heard and, more importantly, listened to at the Council and in other international fora and reflected in our own national statements. Ireland looks forward to working with fellow signatories on these and other issues in order to fully realise the vision of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. This compact is about what we can achieve together. As we say in Ireland, Níneart na Curla Céile, there is no strength without unity. As we launch this process, the word of the acclaimed Irish poet, Evan Boland, should inspire us. We share this day with women everywhere, for those who find the rights they need to be hard won, not guaranteed. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Coveney, for that call and pledge for financial support and advocacy for women and women's civil society organizations so that we can build back better and inclusively. There is indeed no strength without unity. Our next speaker is Madam Diego Ndiaye, President of the Peace and Security Network for Women in the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Madam Ndiaye, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I'm therefore on this platform where I was invited to express the commitment to the compact, but also to applaud this launch ceremony of the pact, which is a major coalition for peace and for security and for humanitarian action. The WPS network in Africa is an organization bringing together 15 countries from West Africa. The challenges, security challenges, are linked up to the implementation of political processes have played a pivotal role, and when it comes to the development area. And as you're all aware, women of the ECOWAS area of the Sahel are strongly impacted by the conflicts emerging from all this, and they're experiencing political instability, which is raging through the ECOWAS region, endemic, abject poverty, a lack of social cohesion in some countries, conflicts emerging from electoral voting processes, community conflict, terrorism, and extreme violence for several decades now. And this has been true since the independence in African countries. Women and their various partners are working hard to move forward women's rights. But the progress remains fairly scant up till now. Various indicators are below the results expected now, be it in the field political or economic realms, or be it in terms of basic rudimentary social services. Peace is the outcome of several factors, improving women's rights. And it means that all these factors, this improving women's rights contributes to sustainable peace. And in this regard, we propose for the next 5 years to set up a Marshall Plan or an African Marshall Plan to handle all these challenges and issues that have been thrown up. For example, the treatment of women, the problem of violence, the funding, the involvement of women, and the aspect of intergenerationality. And we need to have an overall encompassing approach. So we thought about a program which target all countries where women suffer. Now, with a quota of women, in a quota of women decision-making centers, we thought about the application of standards in peace, safety, in particular for regional organizations, for states and organizations, United Nations. We thought about a large-scale program based on quality in order to raise the level of women. More recently, women who've been adversely impinged upon by the COVID-19 pandemic. The situation of women and young girls in various zones and being displaced, it's an alarming situation, and we therefore recommend several holistic interventions so they're able to live in the respect of the rule of law and freedom. And we think that all these programs implemented together should be monitored and assessed on initiative by initiative basis. So we want to protect their rights.
Thank you, Madam Ndiaye, for those remarks. Now we go to Ms. Eva Maria Limets, Foreign Minister of Estonia.
Thank you, dear moderator, ladies and gentlemen. Estonia is proud to be a catalytic member of the Compact. We commend the process of developing the Compact under the excellent leadership of the United Nations Women. The process has been truly inclusive, bringing together a wide range of stakeholders who have all added their valuable perspectives. The result is strong, comprehensive and ambitious set of actions. For Estonia, the women, peace and security agenda is a priority field in various organizations and increasingly also domestically. It is also a priority for us in the United Nations Security Council, where Estonia is currently elected member. We stand for women's full, equal and meaningful participation in all stages of conflict resolution and for the elimination of sexual and gender-based violence. In fact, our objective is to mainstream this topic horizontally into all country-specific deliberations at the Security Council and to stand against all attempts to weaken the existing normative framework. Moreover, empowering women and girls has been a horizontal priority for Estonia's development cooperation and humanitarian aid policy for years. More than 20 years since the adoption of Resolution 1325, we must admit that there is still a long way to go. Despite the normative framework developed over the years, real and tangible action is lagging behind. We see lack of adequate funding, exclusion of women from peace processes, continued violence and repressions against women and girls in conflict situations, attacks against women, peace builders and human rights defenders, etc. This is why we need this compact. We need to translate the resolutions and action plans into real progress on the ground. This is also the reason that Estonia has signed up to a large number of specific actions to give a boost to implementation from our side. Our commitments encompass advocacy, programmatic policy, as well as financial actions. For example, we will advocate for women's participation and inclusion of gender-related provisions in peace processes in all fora, including the UN Security Council. We will strive to ensure that perspectives from women's rights and women-led organizations inform all peace, security and humanitarian statements and policy briefs. For example, during our presidency at the Security Council in June, we have included civil society briefers, mostly women, in a number of Security Council debates. We aim to enforce zero tolerance for any form of abuse, bullying, harassment or discrimination, including sexual exploitation and abuse. In our development cooperation and humanitarian aid, we prioritize comprehensive, gender-sensitive services, including sexual and reproductive health services. We have also since last year started financing the UN Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund, and we are sure that the commitments we have signed up to will reinforce the implementation of our National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. Estonia's third National Action Plan was adopted in May. We will of course aim to cooperate with the United Nations, including UN Women, the Special Representative of Secretary General on Sexual Violence in Conflict, and with other member states and with civil society and academia to implement our commitments. As a catalytic member of the Compact, we will also raise awareness of the Compact and will encourage all entities to become a signatory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Limet, and it's great to see that members commit to zero tolerance for any form of abuse, including sexual exploitation. Now, our next speaker is Ms. Zara Langi, who is the co-founder and CEO of the Liberian Women's Platform for Peace. Ms. Langi, you have the floor.
The co-founder of the Libyan Women's Platform for Peace. So it's a great honor to be here representing civil society at the launch of Compact, because this has been a civil society-led initiative. Last week, the Libyan Women's Platform for Peace marked the 7th anniversary of the assassination of one of our founders, Selwa Bugagis. Selwa's murder, carried out such as she had encouraged Libyans to fight peacefully by using your vote, was meant to send a message to all those a democratic Libya. While the act did indeed presage a catastrophe for Libya, its sad lesson was wider even than that. After 7 years, we are still awaiting justice for Selwa. As women activists, we know better than ever that we cannot simply rely on duty bearers to live up to the national and international agreements, laws, precedents on women, peace and security and humanitarian action. Even they themselves have been the ones to sign up. This has been especially clear in the Arab region. No matter that it has been governments that agreed UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and its related resolution in so many cases, it has that has had to find determination and commitment to ensure to these commitments are implemented on the ground. That is why we have so valued the opportunity provided by the Women, Peace and Security Humanitarian Action Compact. And I welcome and I thank the fellow board members, catalytic members and signatories. I have been especially it has been especially important that the compact focus on existing commitments, because we do not lack for these. What has always been lacking is the political will to prioritize and see these commitments through, so they become more than the subject of discussion, debate in distant cities, and they protect the rights and well-being of women and affected girls in conflict and humanitarian crisis. It is a real honor for me to be here on behalf of the Karama Network to put our name to these actions. The spirit of the compact is that we do not reinvent the wheel. We build on what is working, recognize that it is not, and seek to address those gaps so that we find ourselves again looking back at Pejin, looking back at 1325 and seeing unfulfilled promise. Within the compact's action are concrete things that we in civil society can do. And so I will start by decolonizing funding. This is absolutely vital for the organizations in our network that are led by women working on the ground and who do not have resources, access that much larger NGOs do. Second, we are committed to broadening our making sure that we are truly inclusive movements, recognizing the need for representatives, grassroots participation, youth leadership. We at Karama have been seeking to promote youth participation, representation, and leadership across our network, not just to the next generation, but through our work with adolescents. There is always more that we can do. Third, we are also committing to ensure that the work civil society has done to promote women's leadership benefits wider efforts to increase women's participation. For a long time, women have built and led their own movements from the ground up, because these have been the only to express their leadership. Finally, and as I am speaking here from Geneva, as I am attending very contentious and heated peace talks for Libya, I have to put forward this recommendation. We are committing to ensure peace processes are not rigged, are not flawed, are not centered around the appeasement of warlords, are not centered around power sharing, but rather on sharing responsibilities, centered around the rights of the real people on the ground. We want to make sure that women's participations goes beyond inclusion, that it is not cosmetic participation. The design of the process should not be about who, but rather about what the process is and how is the process designed, how we are going to establish and maintain qualities of accountability, legitimacy, transparency in these processes, and protect the processes from the influence of political money. This work has been about partnership, and a crucial element of that is holding each other accountable for the actions we commit to.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah Lange, and my apologies earlier for the error. And you are the co-founder and CEO of the Libyan Women's Platform for Peace. Thank you very much for your remarks. Now, up next, we have Ambassador Moreno Munjo, who is the Acting Director of the International Women's Peace Center in Namibia. Unfortunately, Ambassador is unable to join us due to technical challenges, but I would like to tell you a little bit about the International Women's Peace Center. So, as we all know, Namibia was an initiator of the UNSCR 1325, and they have maintained a leadership role over the last 20 years. And in solidifying that role, they launched the International Women's Peace Center in Windhoek on the 31st of October 2020 to mark the 20th anniversary of the resolution. The objective of the center is to be a center of excellence which captures a unique niche of innovative distinction amongst institutions working with women, peace and security worldwide. So thank you very much to Namibia for their continuous lead awareness year 1325. Now, there are over 100 signatories to the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact. And coming up is a short video slideshow of all the compact signatories. And it's so great to see so many organizations committed to the compact. And in addition to those organizations and countries and entities that you saw on the video, the compact is also pleased to welcome the United Kingdom and the Economic Community for Central African States, Peru and Luxembourg as signatories. I'd like now to invite Ms. Pavy Canisto, Chief of the Peace and Security and Humanitarian Sector. Closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Your Excellencies, colleagues, participants, fellow feminists, especially including young women leaders, thank you so much for joining us today for this launch of a new compact on women, peace and security and on gender-responsive humanitarian action. It's been very inspiring to hear from compact signatories and women, peace and security and humanitarian action advocates. This is indeed a moment filled with promise and opportunity. So now, as it has been said here, we must take this intergenerational, inclusive action, and we have to do it together, and we have to do it now. I want to thank especially women's rights advocates, and in particular, Compact board and catalytic members who have believed and continue believing in this compact and have made it possible to bring this compact to life. So, I want to thank the compact signatories for taking the bold steps to sign on to actions and investments that they will realize in the next 5 years. And a very warm thank you to my dear UN Women colleagues, particularly Compact Secretariat, who have worked tirelessly, should I say without sleep, for the past months and a year. So, to that end, I am proud that UN Women, as the Compact Secretariat, is also signing up to the Compact by investing in specific actions across all 5 thematic areas of the Compact. We will continue and build on our work in financing, advocacy, policy and programming to support women and girls as they seek to assert their rights to determine their own future, walking a path to sustainable peace. As the Compact Secretariat, we at UN Women will continue to provide our expertise and support on monitoring and reporting on Compact actions, supporting coordination and ensuring visibility for the compact. Distinguished participants and friends, cannot emphasize enough that today is really the beginning of the start of a catalytic action, that together we can actually make all these aspirational commitments on women, peace and security and gender and humanitarian action a reality one day. In the coming weeks, months, years, we will make it happen. We look forward to working with all of you. And again, thank you very much. And also at the end, I also want to thank Mexico and France for their leadership in bringing women, peace and security and humanitarian action to be part of a Generation Equality Forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Canisto. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the launch of the Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action Compact. It has been my profound honor to moderate this launch. Thank you to all our speakers and to all signatories who have made their commitment to the compact. Thank you and goodbye.